Hi everyone, my name's Eric. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. It's great that you can join us. In this math video lesson, we are going to learn how to convert a fraction to a decimal number. Here we have a fraction of 5/6, and we need to convert or change this fraction to a decimal number. Remember that a fraction and a decimal number are two different ways of representing the same quantity. To change a fraction to a decimal, you need to divide the numerator by the denominator. Remember, the numerator is the number on the top of the fraction, and the denominator is the number on the bottom. In some instances, you will get a really long decimal number when you divide, so it might be necessary to round your decimal number to the nearest tenth, hundredth, or thousandth. But more about that later. I am going to show you two ways to convert a fraction to a decimal number. The first way is using long division, and the second way is using a calculator. To convert or change a fraction to a decimal number using long division, you need to write the fraction with the numerator under the long division sign. So put 5 here, and the denominator in front. Looking at our long division, does 6 go evenly into 5 without going over? Well, of course it doesn't, because 6 is greater than 5. So we have to put a 0 above our long division sign here. Now what we need to do is we need to work with decimals. So we're going to put a decimal after the 5, and we're going to carry the decimal and put it right above the 5, above the long division sign, and I'll add a 0 after the decimal. Remember that 5 and 5.0 are the same number, so we haven't changed anything with our original question. Now we can look and ask, how many times does 6 go into 50? You might know that 6 multiplied by 8 is 48. So I'll write 8 up here, and we know 8 multiplied by 6 is 48. And now when we subtract 48 from 50, we end up with 2. So we don't have a 0 remainder yet. Let's put another 0 here, and we can carry this 0 down, and now we have 20. So 6 goes into 20 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. If we subtract again, we have 2. Let's carry on a little bit longer. Let's put one more 0 here, and we'll carry that down. You might notice that we're going to get a pattern forming here. So if we bring this down, we get 20 again. We know 6 goes into 23 times, because 6 times 3 is 18. And we're left with 2 once again. So we can continue this on and on indefinitely to add a 0, bring it down to get 20, multiply 3 by 6 and have 18, and have 2 remainder again and again and again. So what this means is our decimal number is a repeating decimal. So we have 0.8333333 repeating forever. We can stop there. We don't have to continue with our decimals. What we can do is we can write this as 5/6 equals 0.83, and we're going to put a bar above the 3 to show that the 3 will repeat. Let's look at a second example where we are asked to convert 2/7 into a decimal number. So as we did before, we are going to create our long division symbol. We'll write our numerator, which is 2, under the long division symbol, and put 7, the denominator, out in front. So how many times does 7 go into 2 evenly without going over? Well, as before, we can say that it doesn't, because 7 is larger than 2. So it goes in 0 times. This means we are going to work with a decimal. So after 2, we're going to put a decimal, carry it right above so everything lines up here nicely, and we'll put a 0 after the 2. So now we have 20. Because we're going to ignore this decimal right now, so we can read this as 20. So we ask ourselves, how many times does 7 go into 20 without going over? Well, if it was 21, it would go in 3 times evenly, but it's not 21, it's 20, so it only goes in 2 times. 2 multiplied by 7 is 14. If we subtract now, and again, we're still just ignoring this decimal here, So 20 subtract 14 is 6. Let's continue with another 0. Remember, 2.0 is the same as 2, or 2.00 is also the same as 2. So we have not done anything to change from our original question. So we'll bring this 0 down, and we now have 60. So how many times does 7 go into 60 without going over? If you think of your multiplication tables, we know that 7 times 8 is 56, and that's going to be as close as we can get to 60. So keeping everything lined up here, we're going to write an 8, and we multiply 8 times 7, or 7 times 8, and that is 56. So if we subtract 60 and 56, we get 4. Let's put another 0, see what happens here. When we carry this 0 down, and now we have 40. Well, how many times does 7, I have to write the 0. How many times does 7 go into 40? Well, 7 times 5 is 35. We're not going to fit another 7 in there. So 7 times 5 is 35. And we subtract, we now have 5. Let's keep going. We'll put another 0, bring that down. All the way down here, so we now have 50. Well, how many times does 7 go into 50? Well, 7 times 7 is 49. So carry the 7 up here, so everything's still lined up. 7 times 7 is 49. We subtract these two. 50 subtract 49 is 1. And just for fun, we'll put another 0. And we'll bring that down. Now we have 10. How many times does 7 go into 10? Well, it goes in once. 7 times 1 is 7. Subtract, and we get 3. Remember earlier on when I said when we convert a fraction to a decimal number, sometimes we end up with a really long decimal? This is an example of getting a number that's a really long decimal. We can, of course, continue on with this, and our decimal number will continue. But we can stop there. We could have stopped a couple numbers earlier and just round our decimal to the nearest 10th, 100th, or 1000th, if you're thinking of your place value. So let's round this one to the nearest 100th. So what we need to do is look beside. So we look to the right, and we say, okay, what's the next number to the right? If it's 5 or above, then we round up. So because we have 2, 8, 5, we're going to round up. And so we're going to have 2 sevenths equal to 0.2, and we'll round up to 9. So 0.29. You might be wondering, what happens if you have an improper or a mixed fraction that you need to convert into a decimal number? Let's take a look. Let's start with an improper fraction. Let's say we have an improper fraction 9/4. Let's convert this into a decimal number. So we start, as always, with our long division symbol. We're going to put the numerator underneath, just as before, so our setup is the same. 4 out in front, so denominator out in front. Now when we look at this, we see our 4 is smaller than 9. So we know that 4 is going to go into 9. And we know this should be true because we have an improper fraction. And another way of representing an improper fraction is as a mixed fraction with a whole number and a fraction. So 4 goes into 9 2 times. 2 multiplied by 4 is 8. When we subtract 8 from 9, we end up with 1. Let's continue though, because we know we're going to have a decimal here. So we'll put a decimal after the 9, continue it right above, so decimal after the 2. Everything's lined up nicely, and we'll put a 0 here. If we bring the 0 down, we now have 10. 4 goes into 10 2 times. So we'll write our 2 above here. 4 times 2 is 8. This time when we subtract, 10 subtract 8 is 2. Continue, we'll put another 0. We'll bring this 0 down. And now we have 20. How many times does 4 go into 20? Well, it goes in 5 times. So 5 multiplied by 4 is 20. And we end up, when we subtract, with 0. 9 over 4 is equivalent or equal to 2.25. We'll finish with one more example looking at a mixed fraction. For a mixed fraction, let's convert 3 and 5/12 into a decimal. We know when we have a mixed fraction that we have a whole number, in this case 3, and a fraction, or part of a whole, in this case 5/12. What we need to do is not really worry at all about this whole number, about the 3 right now. We're going to convert the 5/12 into a decimal number, and then we'll worry about the 3 later. What's going to happen is we're going to have 3 decimal something, because we already know we have 3 wholes. So we could write this here so we remember. We have 3 decimal, and then some blanks here that we'll need to fill in, depending, again, on how far, if we want to round to the 10th, the 100th, or the 1000th. I'll write 3 spaces there for now. So let's bring this fraction, 5/12, down. We'll write our long division symbol. 5 is the numerator, so it goes underneath. 12 is the denominator, it goes out in front. 12 we know doesn't go into 5 because 12 is larger than 5, so we put a 0 here. Decimal after the 5, decimal after the 0, everything lines up nicely, and we put a 0 here. Now, how many times does 12 go into 50? Well, 12 is going to go into 50 4 times. 4 times 12 is 48. So we'll write 48 underneath. And remember, I'm saying 50, not really worrying about how many times does 12 go into 5.0, but thinking how many times does 12 go into 50. So 12 goes into 50. We already said 4 times, which is 48. If we subtract, we get 2. We'll put a 0 here and bring it down. So now we have, just extend that a bit. So now we have 20. Well, how many times does 12 go into 20 without going over? Goes once. 1 times 12 is 12. If we subtract, we have 8. And we'll bring another 0, bring it down. So we have 80. Okay. How many times does 12 go into 80? We know from our multiplication tables that 12 multiplied by 6 is 72. So if we write 72 here, we're not going to be able to fit another 12 in there without going above 80. And when we subtract, we get 8. Again, can you see a pattern that's probably going to form here? If we put another 0 and brought it down, we'd end up with 80 multiplied by 6. And so we're going to have this repeating 6 as our decimal number here. When we're looking at 3 and 5/12 as a decimal number, we're going to have 3 decimal, and we'll keep this to the nearest thousandth. So 416. We're just going to put a bar above 6, and that bar symbol just shows whoever's looking at this that 6 is going to repeat in your answer. 3.416 is equivalent to or equal to our original question of 3 and 5/12. When using a calculator to convert from a fraction to a decimal number, the concept is the same, but the process is a lot quicker. First, enter the numerator in your calculator, for example 3, followed by the division operation. Next, enter the denominator into your calculator, for example 4, followed by the equal sign, 0.75. Depending on the fraction that you are converting into a decimal number, you may need to round the decimal number to the nearest 10th, 100th, or 1000th. I really hope this lesson helps you convert fractions to decimal numbers. Remember to hit that like button. It really helps me and my channel reach viewers just like you. If you want to improve your math skills, learn about new math tools and strategies, and feel more confident as a math learner, then start now by subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any of my awesome videos. I'm Eric. Until next time, take good care and keep learning.